It's kind of like shards of glass circulating through your bloodstream. It's ripping apart the insides of your arteries. It's causing blindness. It's causing heart disease, kidney failure, stroke, nerve damage, right? So that's why they also call Alzheimer's diabetes type 3. High blood sugar is very damaging to nerve tissue, and the brain, of course, is nerve tissue. So that's very correlated, the high blood sugars and memory, dementia, Alzheimer's. High blood sugars, our diet, it's inflammatory. And so if you're a type 2 diabetic that's with really bad blood sugars, you're going to, of course, have to need high cholesterol, high blood pressure, anti-inflammatories, maybe blood thinners. The number one reason why diabetics die is heart disease, because of that mechanism I just explained. It's very damaging to the cardiovascular system. And blood is the lifeline to every cell in the body. So if you don't have good circulation, then your cells are going to start being underfed and die, which is why so many diabetics get their toes cut off, their foot cut off, their leg cut off, something like that. The circulation, also nerve damage to the extremities goes as well. So metabolic syndrome is what is on the rise in Americans, and it's a group of risk factors that increase the likelihood of diabetes, stroke, other health conditions. And it's defined when someone has 3 of the 5 following conditions.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode on Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Jody Stanislaw as my guest today, and today she will be talking about her specialties, and she has many. She's a naturopathic doctor. She is certified as a diabetes educator, and she also is a type 1 diabetes specialist. She has done TED Talks as well as published a book, so she is also an author. And with that, Jody, take it away. Tell us all about you and what you do.
Okay, thanks, Blanca. It's so nice to be here. It's so fun to share on people's podcasts and everything. I love the internet, how it gives us this avenue to share our expertise and our inspiration. My story starts when I was 7. I was very sick, overnight, almost thirsty, lethargic, on the couch, wetting my bed, crying because I was so tired and thirsty. And my mom eventually took me to the ER, and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That was in 1980, and I spent a week at Seattle Children's Hospital and actually had so much fun at that hospital because the doctors were so nice, and they made my time so much fun that I was 7 when I decided I want to be a physician. So it took me 30 years to become a doctor after that dream, and many not linear paths, we shall say. Ending up in the ER from a drinking episode when I was 18, things like that. So realizing that a lot of MDs I didn't like, I wasn't sure if I wanted to become an MD. The schooling seemed exhausting, but eventually I found a holistic health school, a naturopathic doctor medical school, and I was so excited. So I was in school full time for 5 years, from 30 to 35, and now I'm a naturopath. So I do have type 1 diabetes, and as I said, and I decided when I finished med school that I wanted to still have a very virtual, adventurous life. Well, the word virtual wasn't around in 2007 when I graduated, but I learned how to create a virtual consulting practice right away, right out of the gate. And I've been doing a virtual type 1 diabetes practice for now over 10 years. So I travel all the time. I've lived in 10 different countries. I've visited 35. And my book that you mentioned, I actually wrote a blog when I lived in Thailand, and everybody loved it so much they said I should write a book. So my book actually isn't diabetes, it isn't health. It's just life introspection while a single female is living in Thailand. Kind of eat, pray, love-ish, if you will. So now I've been helping type 1 diabetics all around the world, which I absolutely love to do. And several years ago, I had up on my bucket list to give a TEDx talk, and I did that. And it's called Sugar is Not a Treat. So not only do I help patients with knowing how to manage their insulin, but my biggest passion is really helping people understand how bad sugar is for them and how essential a healthy diet is for a healthy life. So many people unfortunately just eat whatever's in the grocery store, and whatever in the grocery store is killing us. So my TED Talk, I'm so grateful it's reached over 5 million people. And this is, so helping type 1s is a passion of mine, but really helping people understand the absolute importance of what they put in their mouth is a passion of mine as well. And the third area of medicine that I'm just stepping into, which we probably won't go deep into too much today, is really the power of the mind in how healthy our body is. And that I can expand on later. But diabetes, diet, and mind are my passions right now.
So, Dr. Jody Stanislaw, what I found so fascinating about you and finding out more about your book entitled Hunger, An Adventurous Journey to Finding Peace Within, you also did something really extraordinary. You traveled for a full year through Asia, Europe, and also South America. And I saw in a video that you came so prepared with all of your medication. I wanted to ask you about that. I am very blessed. I am not on any medications whatsoever right now. What was life like traveling through so many different countries, knowing you had to take medications wherever you went?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. The intention was 12 months of travel. However, COVID happened right in the middle of that. So we got 6 months through the program, living in a different country every month. And then my whole life became unrooted and had to get rerouted and everything. So, however, one of the things that I love to teach my patients and people in general is the more empowered you are with your health, the more confident you should be in traveling, right? The more confident you have physical well-being and physical vibrancy, the more confidence you have in traveling. And a lot of my patients are scared to travel because of they're afraid they're going to have a low blood sugar, they're afraid they're going to have a high blood sugar, they're afraid their insulin's going to go bad. And insulin is available everywhere unless you're going out in the middle of nowhere, which I was in major cities. I was in Split, Croatia. I was in Lisbon, Portugal. I was in Valencia, Spain, Cape Town, South Africa. And frankly, I walked into a lot of the pharmacies. Specifically, I remember walking into Cape Town just out of curiosity. I said, hey, I'm an American. I have type 1 diabetes. Can I just get insulin if I needed it? And he goes, it's our law that if you are type 1 diabetic and you have no ID or doctor's note and you need insulin, we give it to you. And it's $65 or $35 or whatever it was. So yes, it's insulin. So the confidence in your body that you are resilient is the first step to traveling around the world. But the second is I brought a year and a half worth of insulin with me, and I kept it with me when I was on the flights. I put it in the fridge whenever I arrived, wherever I arrived. I had boxes packed with blood sugar monitors at home that could easily be shipped to me. I had a backup of, I have a continuous glucose monitor that I wear, and those you have to change every 10 days, and each one is pretty big. So I couldn't have taken I'd have a separate suitcase for those. I'd have a year's worth of those. So the backup was just a finger poker, the old school way to poke my finger and get a blood sugar reading. I just prepared. I did my research. I have confidence in my body. I have confidence in my blood sugar management skills. I have confidence I'm not going to suddenly randomly have a low blood sugar out of nowhere. And I have confidence on how to manage my high blood sugars. That's really what I teach my type 1 patients, is how to have confidence and not let life scare you. Right? We all want that. We all want the freedom to be able to be like, I can go out anywhere. I have the stamina to do it. I have the confidence to do it. I have the health to do it. And with diabetes, it's just another level of that. You got to have a little extra preparation with your supplies. But as long as you have proper support, education, and preparation, you should be able to do anything you want traveling.
I love that. And that is so much in the spirit of this YouTube channel, Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth, because I too believe that everyone should be empowered to take their best health into their own hands.
Yeah.
And I understand that there are some conditions that, it's not because of individuals' habits, it's just something they're born with. And the fact that, you did not let that limit you, you don't let that limit you. And you're a living example for others that have other chronic illnesses, that they should not let that stop them from living a full life. They just have to have more awareness and preparation. And I love that mindset work. I could definitely see how that plays into just helping people embrace a fuller life and not believing their own stories that they may have told themselves in the past of limiting beliefs and, oh, I can't do this because. And I think it's great. I did see that you were posting on Instagram when you were traveling internationally. So I hope a lot of viewers saw that and they felt
Yeah.
empowered to travel as well.
It was so fun. It was so fun. I want to get back on doing videos because I still live an adventurous life. But yeah, I could do a video when I was in Dubrovnik, and I could do a video when I was riding camels in the Sahara Desert, and when I was in Dubai and at Singapore airport. It was amazing. I was in Hanoi, Vietnam when COVID came along. So that was a little harrowing, but I'm obviously alive, so that's good.
So, Dr. Jody, I wanted to ask you about something else. And I know for me, until maybe a couple of years ago, I really didn't understand the difference between diabetes 1 and diabetes 2.
Oh,
Now I do because I've immersed myself in the health and wellness space. But for the benefit of the audience that may not really know the difference about the two types of diabetes, can you explain a little for us what that looks like?
that's a great question. And I absolutely love educating the public on that because so many people sheepishly come up to me and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know the difference. And the reality is the vast majority of people do not. So no need for embarrassment around that. So it's unfortunate, frankly, that the two are called the same thing. Both have blood sugar problems, but the root cause of type 1, first of all, there's only about less than 2 million of people in the US with type 1 and over 30 or 40 million with diabetes and prediabetes type 2. So type 1 diabetes is quite rare, although unfortunately it's growing quite rapidly. There's only about 5% of the total diabetes population that has type 1. So a lot of people say you're born with type 1, and actually that's not true. You're generally younger. That used to be called juvenile diabetes, but even that is changing. It's an autoimmune disease. So the immune system, when I was young, thought that the cells that make insulin in my body should be attacked. And in classic juvenile, less than 12, 13 years old onset, that immune attack against the insulin producing cells can be so intense that the child gets super sick. And that's what happened to me. However, over 50% of autoimmune diabetes, as I wish it was called, are now in their 40s, 50s, 60s. I have patients of all ages now getting autoimmune diabetes. So the big question is, why did the immune system do that? We don't know. We don't know why MS happens. We don't know why lupus happens. There's a lot of theories. Sure, some genetics play a part, but it really seems to be more of an environmental trigger. All of the things that weaken and stress out the immune system. Type 1 diabetes onset was on the uptick after COVID. So we've already known that previous viral infections seem to push the autoimmune activity up greatly. There is a lot of science showing, though, that autoimmune attack isn't just a week or a month-long thing. My body was probably attacking my cells for a year or more. Who knows how long? And then in adult onset, it can happen even slower. So the thing that every adult needs to watch out for is every adult. Well, let me explain type 2 now. Type 2, there's no autoimmune activity going on at all. It is a weakness in the body's ability to continue to manage blood sugar. Generally, there's a lot more involved, which we won't get into today, but classically, it's that the person has overworked their system, right? If you play too much tennis, your elbow, you're going to get tennis elbow, right? If you put too much pressure on your thigh bone, you'll break your thigh. If you put too much pressure on your blood sugar management system, it will break too, right? But how do you heal something that's broken? You rest it, and you don't keep putting the same amount of pressure on it. That's why type 2 diabetes can be reversed. I wish it wasn't really called a disease as much as a condition, right? When people lose weight and eat better and exercise, the vast majority of type 2s reverse it, right? Well, that's no different than you can't be putting too much pressure on your leg and thinking it's not going to keep breaking. That's not a disease, right? When you break your leg, you don't have broken leg disease. Type 2 is really a vast unfortunate result of how Americans eat today and how the Western world eats. We are not designed to eat all the processed foods, all the carbs, all the high sugar drinks and everything. So the body is not built to handle that. So the body becomes obese, the blood sugar rises, the body's insulin production literally cannot keep up with the amount of sugar coming into the system. Because every time you eat, your body has to make insulin, and you eat, and your body makes insulin. Especially you eat sugar, your body has to make lots of insulin. So type 2, their system is worn out. It's been overpressed. Now, toxicities have a lot to do with that as well. Classic thing that doctors do is they run a test called a hemoglobin A1C, and everybody should take note of this test. Everybody should have a hemoglobin A1C test done at least every 5 years, if not more frequently. And what a hemoglobin A1C test does look at is it looks at how much glucose is stuck to your red blood cells. And red blood cells live for about 3 months. So if you get a sample of your blood, the oldest red blood cells in there will be 3 months. And then you'll have ones that are 2 months and 1 month and 1 week and 1 day. But glucose is very sticky. So if your blood sugar levels are generally high, the higher they are, the more glucose is stuck to those red blood cells. So if you get a sample suddenly of your 3 months of blood cells, you can tell what your average blood sugar level has been based on how much glucose is stuck to all of your red blood cells. So that is what the A1C tests. A lot of doctors just simply do a fasting morning, which I think is it's not as big picture. It's one in the moment. What happens if you just happen to not eat your big spaghetti, garlic bread, wine dinner the night before, and you fasted, and then your morning blood sugar level is great? Okay, great. That's 1 second of time. The A1C test looks at 3 months. You can't cheat an A1C test. So that test, if it's elevated in an adult, what happens is many primary care doctors, even endocrinologists, immediately assume you're type 2 diabetic and they give you some oral medication. And unfortunately, if that medication doesn't work for you, and maybe you've been thin and athletic your whole life and you're scratching your head wondering how you got type 2, that is when you want to ask for the autoantibody test. The autoantibody test shows if your immune system is actually attacking your red blood cells, and not that your red blood cells are weak. That's the only way to differentiate in an adult, well, in anybody. Are your red blood cells, is your immune system attacking your insulin producing cells, which means you're going to have high blood sugars, or are you overworking yourself? It's very important for any adult who has a high blood sugar level to be differentiated. Are you type 1 with autoantibodies in your blood, or are you type 2? You've just overworked your system.
Jody, I wanted to ask you something that really caught my attention about what you said. You mentioned that it really takes about a 3-month test versus a one-off where maybe the individual is diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. With that in mind, are some doctors prematurely diagnosing individuals as type 2 diabetes and prescribing medications to them, or being pre-diabetic or even diabetic when they don't really have type 2 diabetes? Is there an over-medicate?
Yeah, well, it's an uneducated physician, because they're not thinking type 1 could be, most doctors think the only people that get type 1 are kids. And if you really look at the data today, that's not true. And I help patients all over the world, and it seems like at least 50% of my patients were diagnosed after the age of 30. So it's unfortunately not on a lot of, we all know today primary care doctors are very inundated with too many patients. So, and many of them just don't have, oh, this is a type 1 diabetic on their radar if it's an adult with high blood sugar. So that's why we have to empower ourselves. And if you as the adult just kind of intuitively feel like there's no way I could be type 2 diabetic, I've taken good care of myself, it's nobody in my family has it, I've exercised, right? That is when you should request getting the autoimmune markers, the type 1 autoimmune markers, because your treatment will have to progress to insulin much faster than type 2. But there is ways that we can slow down that progression, and it has to be much more aggressive in type 1 versus type 2.
I don't know if you know this about me. I used to work in the life insurance industry, and one of the I guess hiccups I always run into is getting individuals qualified for life insurance because of the slew of medications they were on and so many health issues. Diabetes and being on metformin was something that I absolutely always came across, and it seemed to be bundled with hyper and cholesterol, so it wasn't just one thing. And I think what started getting my attention is how can these seemingly healthy individuals have so many health issues and be on so many medications all at the same time. I mean, for me, it was just astounding. And that's when I started doing the deeper questioning and the deeper dives into, well, are doctors just pharmaceutical happy? Are they giving medications to people that, really, if the individual started eating healthier, which is something you have control over, and obviously I'm talking about diabetes too with this, but if they just change certain things like their eating habits, eating less processed food and less ingredients that they can't enunciate, and just started exercising more, I mean, how much of a healthier individual and a society as a whole would we be? And are special interests really just at play here because healthy people don't need medicine, and that would not be financially profitable for those manufacturing those medicines?
It's how we're eating. It's how we're eating. Over 50% of America is obese, I believe, is the stat, something like that. And 1 in 3, I think, is going to be type 2 diabetic by 2030 or 2050. I'm sorry, I don't have my stats. It's bad. The stats are bad. And it's directly correlated with our lifestyle and too much stress and what we're eating. When you have high blood sugar, you're going to have a lot of inflammation in the body. High blood sugars, right? If you don't make enough insulin, then all of that sugar that you're eating can't get out of your bloodstream very easily, because insulin's job is to pick up the sugar and then feed it to the cells. And so if your blood sugar level is 140, 150, 160, 200 plus, it's kind of like shards of glass circulating through your bloodstream. It's ripping apart the insides of your arteries. It's causing blindness. It's causing heart disease, kidney failure, strokes, gangrene, depression, nerve damage, right? So that's why they also call Alzheimer's diabetes type 3. High blood sugar is very damaging to nerve tissue, and the brain, of course, is nerve tissue. So that's very correlated, the high blood sugars and memory, dementia, Alzheimer's. High blood sugars, our diet, it's inflammatory. And so if you're a type 2 diabetic that's with really bad blood sugars, you're going to, of course, have to need high cholesterol, high blood pressure, anti-inflammatories, maybe blood thinners. The number one reason why diabetics die is heart disease, because of that mechanism I just explained. It's very damaging to the cardiovascular system. And blood is the lifeline to every cell in the body. So if you don't have good circulation, then your cells are going to start being underfed and die. That's why so many diabetics get their toes cut off, their foot cut off, their leg cut off, something like that. The circulation, also nerve damage to the extremities goes as well. So metabolic syndrome is what is on the rise in Americans, and it's a group of risk factors that increase the likelihood of diabetes, stroke, other health conditions. And it's defined when someone has 3 of the 5 following conditions: a waistline of at least 35 inches for women or 40 inches for men, or more; blood pressure of 130/85 or higher; a fasting blood sugar above 100; triglycerides of 150 or more; and an HDL, which is the good cholesterol, and you want it actually high. And exercise is one of the best ways to raise your HDL. You want, if your HDL is below 40. So this is, it's common and estimated that 1 in 3 adults in America have metabolic syndrome, 33% of our society, and it is largely preventable. It's inactive lifestyle. It's the diet we lead. And this is why our insurance rates are so high. This is why, and in my TED Talk, I talk about how if I were to become president, I would change the food system. I would make all processed foods illegal and make whole foods be mandatory. Exercise, I would encourage, free gyms. I would subsidize the gyms, and I would just make the whole country get on an exercise and healthy eating kick. And we would have healthier people, happier people, more productive people, more creative people, less arguments, less shootings, less medical bills, obviously, less hospital visits, lower insurance rates, more vibrant, creative individuals running the world, right? It would be amazing. So that if I were president, we would change those basic, I call it the meds, right? You and I know where this comes from. What are your meds, the most important meds? Your mindset, your exercise, your diet, and your sleep. Those are the 4 most valuable meds in the world. That's the foundation above your other medication.
One thing I find interesting that I was not aware of, so I am guilty of this as well, is I've always prided myself on being very athletic, exercising, eating healthy, and it was all the hidden sugars I was not aware of. I started doing sugar cleanses about 5 years ago, and for me it was mostly because I had watched a educational documentary on how parasites in the intestine feed off of sugar. And that whole concept of me actively feeding the parasites by taking in sugar was enough to make me look at all the ingredient labels of foods I was consuming. That included sports drinks, which I know you talk about in your TED Talk. That included some of my favorite salad dressings.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So as much as, I just want to enjoy the food I eat and not have to like analyze everything I'm eating, I still think it's really important to look at labels and look at the hidden sugars. And I really was shocked when I went on these sugar cleanses, which I try to do at least twice a year, that there's just so much sugar in my food that I was not aware of. I don't have a sweet tooth, so it's not like I'd be popping candy and like cupcakes, but definitely I love my dressings, and because I was exercising all the time, I was taking in sports drinks for the electrolytes, not really understanding how much hidden sugar they had. And I think that's what, and you go again deeply into this in your TED Talk, that a lot of young athletes did give up their sodas, but they replaced it with electrolyte drinks filled with sugar, not realizing that, well, you're still not really putting something that's good for you in your body.
Yes, yes. You really have to be outstanding in your choices of food. Outstanding means you stand out. In today's world, you have to be outstanding in your decision, in your courage, in your willingness, in your preparation, in your steadfast dedication to your health. Because if you are with the crowd is the 1 in 3 that has metabolic syndrome, and probably eventually 2 out of 3. The masses, if you follow the masses, you will not be healthy. So you are going to have to be the one that sticks out. Fortunately or unfortunately, I've been the one that has stuck out since I was 7. I had to bring sugar-free Jell-O to my birthday parties. I had to write down when I had a cookie. We weren't allowed to have sugar in my house. And so fortunately or unfortunately, I've never had the freedom to just eat and labels since, well, before labels even existed. We didn't have labels in the 80s. I don't know when they came out, but we didn't have half the chemicals that they put in food. We didn't have all the seed oil. There's so much. Seed oils are not good for you at all as well. And so there's so many things, and seed oils are in so many, even of the organic, healthy, processed foods kind of thing. Now, I eat processed foods. I just don't eat very many. And I do read labels, and, every single whole food granola is not made equal. Every single whole food bread is not made equal. Every single whole food salad dressing is not made equal. So if you want to have a steadfast commitment to putting clean things in your body, you do have to read labels. There's too many sneaky seed oils and sugars in today's food for you to not realize it.
So I wanted to ask you a question on mindset, and I've spoken to a few other guests that have talked about some of the illnesses that they acquired in their life, being very healthy individuals. And some of the feelings that came to those guests were anger that they lived a very healthy lifestyle, yet they acquired some sort of a illness, a disease that was chronic. You as this 7-year-old child, I'm just trying to envision little Jody as a 7-year-old being invited to that party, not being able to eat cake, and what was going through your mind as that little Jody growing up?
Hmm.
Was there a sense of anger? Did you accept it? Was it something that made you work on your own mindset to not be that angry little child? And how is that playing into your
Hmm.
professional career now, helping others with chronic diseases?
That is a very deep question, and I will happily answer it. I thank you for the depth of that question. I was actually loving the attention I got initially. I felt very special. I felt like the unique, special one. Didn't I guess I was just born as never wanting to fit in, even though at this age I'm like, well, it'd be nice to feel like I fit in sometime. But I loved how I stood out. I got special attention when I needed to have my blood sugar tested and things like that. However, if you tell a 7-year-old girl that she has to weigh and measure every bite of food, she can have 12 crackers, not 14. She can have a third of a cup of rice, not a fourth of a cup or half a cup. She can have, one piece of bread, not two. You can have a cookie on Tuesday, not Sunday. I developed an intense eating disorder. So I don't consciously remember being angry, but clearly I I would start binging on food. I would go on sleepovers at my friend's house and wait for everybody to go to sleep. And then I'd raid their cookie jars and things like that. I did end up in an eating disorder rehab center eventually. And it's been a very long road. I used food, I think, to suppress anger for many, many years, more than I'm even willing to admit. And I believe now that I have a healthier food than ever, relationship with food ever now. I still don't have the freedom that I dream about when we get cured, which hopefully will happen someday. I still have to weigh and measure and count and read labels and figure out what I'm eating to figure out how much insulin I need. Because every time you eat, you have to figure out how much insulin you need. That's not a set it and forget it. One of my girlfriends from high school said, well, isn't it easy now? You've had it for so long. I'm like, no. And then I just said to her, because she has like 3 kids, I said, well, you've been a mom for, 15 years now. Isn't it just easy now? And she's laughed at me. I'm like, well, some things are hard forever. So figuring out how much insulin I need every time I eat is a thing every day. So the anger that I suppressed for all those years with food, I feel like I'm now learning how to deal with. I actually literally am in this course learning about how brain patterns, repressed emotions, lack of self-love, all these things actually can cause chronic ailments, migraines, chronic fatigue, PTSD. And so I'm learning even now ways to release anger that I think I probably had suppressed my whole life. Like I've been dreaming about wanting to get a baseball bat and go out in the forest and like I'm like, okay, I got anger in me. I'm not pressing it down with food anymore, but I can definitely feel that there's repressed stuff that I need to get out. So I'm actively working on that right now. So food has been quite a journey for me. Just also diabetes aside, as a female, growing up in a culture that really wants you to be skinny. Yeah. So food, that's a whole nother topic.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. I did not expect the answer you gave me, but thank you, because I think that really is a landscape where many individuals, whether they have chronic illnesses or not, live in just their relationship with food. And
Hmm.
I just wanted to add, I have recently done a deep dive into someone that I look up to. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Gabor Mate. Reading his book, The Myth
Mm.
of Normal. And
Yes.
I got that book because, all of us, if we're honest, have our own issues that we need to work with. Mine is trauma. I definitely know, another book that I learned a lot from was The Body Keep the Score
Yeah.
by Bessel van der Kolk. And the journey I've been navigating is just how I've had trauma, complex and compound trauma in my life, and the effects it had on my health. I wasn't always healthy like I am today. I had my own journey and of not being healthy, even when I was exercising, because I was just manifesting so many things from stress and anxiety. And,
Yeah.
that was my goal in just starting this YouTube channel, that I think so many of us have gone through different journeys just trying to get to a space of healthy. And
Hmm.
I think there's so many of us that could have benefited learning from others that went through that journey before us. And
Yeah.
the information was just not available in a place where we could find it. So I thank you for that. And that's part of my big mission with this platform, just to let people know that maybe are in a very dark space right now. It might be this person in the audience, you right now listening, needing to hear this message of hope that yes, you can have a certain health situation and that is not a life sentence. There are things you can do to improve your own health, regardless of where your starting line is. So thank you for that very, very honest and vulnerable answer.
You're welcome. It's actually something I'm so passionate about now. I'm envisioning expanding my career into becoming a speaker and a teacher in this field. There's a program called the Gupta program, Dr. Gupta, Gupta, and it is focused on helping patients retrain their brain to live from a place of calm, love, and the parasympathetic state, right? What happens is the accumulation of traumas in one's life, the brain is meant to keep us safe, right? So if we have a trauma, we touch our hand to like a mini trauma, hand to a stove, and then we go like this. Now our brain has learned, don't do that again, right? Don't touch that. But think about how many, then there's human involved traumas. Okay, well, don't talk to men. Okay, don't talk to women. Okay, don't speak your mind. Don't, whatever it is, right? There's all of these accumulations of traumas that build up that the brain is supposed to get into a fight or flight to save us, but then it's supposed to immediately revert to parasympathetic, where we're calm, where we heal, where we rest, where we digest. We're supposed to live from this rest and digest. Sympathetic, run, breathe faster, blood flow, shut off digestion, all of that. The liver puts out glucose, gives you an adrenaline rush. That's supposed to be short term, right? And then the body comes back. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people who the accumulation of trauma, it's as a child, it's in their 20s, it's in their 30s, it's a car accident, it's a breakup, it's a worldwide pandemic. Whether you get COVID, the vaccine or not, people are having PTSD, like long COVID symptoms in people that never had COVID and never had the vaccine, because it's that accumulation of trauma that then the brain, the bucket is overflowing. And if your trauma bucket overflows, the brain thinks life every day is not safe. And it can create chronic migraines, chronic pain, chronic back pain, fibromyalgia, PTSD symptoms, anxiety. And so unfortunately, a lot of the doctors will be like, oh, you have a migraine, here's a migraine med. Oh, you have back pain, go see the back doctor. But it's actually the pain is coming from the brain. It's a whole new area of science and medicine that I'm diving into. I'm actually just wrote an application yesterday to speak at our national convention next summer on this topic, because even my profession, the naturopaths, I don't think have this on their radar as much. If you have chronic fatigue, you look at your nutrients, you look at your diet, you look at your sleep patterns, but are you looking at your brain patterns? So I'm very excited personally and professionally to dive into really understanding that a lot of our chronic symptoms are because the brain is stuck in not feeling like the world is safe anymore. So inevitably, the brain is going to be creating fatigue. Don't go out in the world. Pain. Don't move too much, right? It shrinks us back. And when you're ill, of course, you're not living your out vibrant life. You're not socializing and having energy to go do stuff. So the pain itself is a protective mechanism to keep your whole soul from not wanting to live. So I'm very passionate about this topic because it relates to me, myself as well.
Me as well. And I would be very, very excited to have you do a deep dive on that topic. I'd love to have you back.
Sure.
And just, bring more of this knowledge to people and start normalizing the conversation. So, Dr. Stanislaw, I want to be respectful of your time. Is there one thing I did not know to ask you, or any parting thoughts you would like to leave our audience with?
Sure, absolutely. Parting thought. No, your questions were excellent. So I thank you so much. The parting thought for anybody that knows anybody with a type 1 diabetic is I can work virtually with any type 1 diabetic. All you have to do to find me online is Google the words Dr. Jody Diabetes. My TED Talk comes up, my YouTube channel comes up, my website. You can click on applying to have a private call with me to see if working together is a good fit. I help the parents of the little kids. I help the adults that have had it forever that are burnt out. I help the newly diagnosed adults. So if that fits, please Google Dr. Jody Diabetes. For the general audience, take care of your meds, your mindset, your exercise, your diet, your sleep. Have protein for breakfast. That's the easy one dietary step. Get rid of your mochas and your cereals and your bagels and your English muffins. Having protein for breakfast really helps stabilize blood sugar, energy, mood, appetite. The next time you're feeling like you want a snack and you just had a big lunch, have water. Water, we can feel a 20% decrease in energy with a 5% decrease in hydration. So if you want to be healthier, I'm assuming most people don't drink enough water, but go for water before an unnecessary snack. And exercise, I'm telling you, go on short walks, 5-minute walks, 10-minute walks, get outside, even if it's cold. Change your environment. Anytime your mindset is all, just get outside. I mean, it literally, I can be like, go outside, open the door, have the sun in my face. Boom. I'm like, amen. Life is good. So just really those basics. I love empowering people and inspiring people to do the basics. You know what you need to do. If it's your mindset piece, your exercise, your diet, your sleep, pick one little thing. You'll feel so much better. And then you can pick another. So that's my passion. Basic.
Audience, thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so now, and please share this video with everyone you know. I think the entire conversation about sugar and health and diet is relevant to everyone. So
yes.
Thank you, and please share, and we will see you on our next episode.